Good morning. Thank you so much for giving the CGA and Common Ground Golf Course the opportunity to say a few words at the top of this webinar. As I was telling Bobo before we went live here, pace of play has been a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I've been in the golf industry for 40 years, and we're still trying to solve for this. But we're pretty good at problem solving as an industry. I'm holding, here you go, look at this. This is a Dunlop Max Fly golf ball. Pretty big. That was a problem when these old balls got that. And guess what? We figured out a ways to innovate and get balls that don't do that. So I guess that's a nice way to kind of frame it. So one thing that'll never change in our industry is always trying to find a better way, whether it's the golf ball material or managing things like pace of play. So Ben and I work together operating the Common Ground Golf Course. Ben is our director of golf. And I am such a fan of Tagmarshal because, as the saying goes, you can't manage what you don't measure, and this allows us to measure it. And just one quick anecdote that's happened repeatedly is very rarely, but periodically, we'll get a complaint about pace of play. And historically, I'll get a complaint, I should say. We get complaints all the time, but it'll come to me as executive director of the CJ and say, hey, I played your golf course and the pace was terrible. And in the past, I just say, I'm very sorry. I wish, we're not perfect. Now I'll say, when did you play? What day was it? What time did you tee off? And then I'll look with Ben and I'll look at Tagmarshal and I'll say, yep, they are not exaggerating. They are correct. And then I have a much different conversation with that customer, that constituent, that friend of a board member to say, yes, you're right. We're going to do better. Here's what happened that day. So that's just one example. I've also spent time on the golf course, putting myself in the crosshairs with our on-course officials or on-course ambassadors. And it's amazing how the system and the eye test and being on the golf course work so well together. You need both. You can't just you got to manage it. You can't just let the system run on autopilot and your pace of play is solved. We all know that's not going to happen. It's also not going to help if you don't have the data to back up what you're seeing with your eyes and your daily management. So it's working beautifully. The other thing I really love about Tagmarshal, they're always innovating, always adding new features. We now have the GPS beeping at golfers, telling them to stay out of certain areas. The messages popping up. It's just really, every time I'm out there, I'm pleased to see the progress. And we're still coexisting with the walking tags and the cart tags, and that really works well. So every group that's out on, because we have a lot of walkers at Common Ground, probably much more than most courses. Ben, would you say probably 60% of our play is walking? Or?
Yep, that's about right.
So it's that's that, and Tagmarshal can accommodate for that. It's not just one or the other. So I could keep going, but I'm really delighted to say a few words.
Well, thank you, Ben. Yeah, we certainly enjoy being partners with you and helping growing the game in Colorado and making it more sustainable. And obviously delighted to have Ben Pennymon with us, the director of golf of Common Ground. Ben, won't you do us a favor and do an introduction on the facility and also yourself and how you got to be in the position that you're in?
Yeah, so Ben Pennymon, director of golf here at Common Ground Golf Course, and we're happy to be here, happy to have this conversation. So as Ed kind of mentioned, and I guess I'll start with myself. So my background is not particularly in golf. I didn't start in golf. I didn't swing a golf club until I was 27 years old, and some kind of way I became a PGA professional. I guess that makes me a little bit nuts or aggressive when it comes to the game of golf. So so got introduced to it, fell in love with it, and had different experiences in the game of golf. Worked at a couple of private facilities here in Colorado, and then found my way here to Common Ground Golf Course, which is a perfect fit for me. So we're a facility that is really in the heart of the community. So between our programmatic work that gets done out here at our facility, to how we manage the golf course, to how we try to maintain the golf course in a way to makes it playable, to having one of the top designers out there right? And Tom Doak as our designer of our golf course, which really helps to put us on the map along with the conditions and how we maintain the facility itself. We just find ourselves right in the crosshairs of golf in Colorado, and of course, being owned by the CGA, which is to me the heart of golf here in Colorado. So yeah, so we're very busy. The golf course does about 42,000 starts each year. It's kind of where we've been living. And so, as you can imagine, pace of play is a big part of that experience. That experience is, we get folks from all over the place coming to play this golf course, and of course, with the influx of folks coming in from all different types of avenues now, the top golfs and those things. Finding a place for them to play is one thing, but making sure they have a positive experience is another. So we make sure we keep them in the space. So that's kind of a brief overview.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I love your story into the game. It's very inspiring. And I know that you also do a lot of, obviously, for the growth of the game, junior golf and leagues and so on. And one of the things that yeah, that's also a great opportunities for you to be a bit of a sandbox, right? And try new things. Tell us a little bit about that and that sort of purpose for Common Ground in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have just about every kind of dynamic of league that you can imagine. We've got everything from our traditional men's and women's clubs to things that I implemented when I got here, which is having a ladies social club in the afternoon, which is, we like to call it a little hit and giggle. They play a team scramble and they enjoy themselves and they don't take the game too seriously. To our men's senior league and then our mixed doubles league. So, and then of course, PGA Junior League we host out here as well. So all those things, they present their own challenges. And it's particularly, when we're talking about pace of play, we want to provide those opportunities for folks to come out and engage in a competitive environment, but we're still operating a golf course. So we have non-competitive players and our daily fee players that are coming, and we don't want to impact them either. So, it's really that balance. And, from a pace standpoint, Tagmarshal really helps us to kind of manage that process.
Yeah, fantastic. And thanks for the great work you're doing to grow the game and to bring many more people into the game. We'll talk about the technology now to get how you get things done on the course in just a minute. And if you'll allow me, yeah, my name is Bodo Sieber, the CEO and one of the co-founders of Tagmarshal. We've been building a golf course optimization platform now in our 10th year. We work with 700 courses. We've tracked 75 million rounds of golf. One of these days, we'll say 100 million. It's actually not that far off because things are accelerating. And we just cater to and serve both private clubs and daily fee courses. And we also have a tournament solution for organizations. But yeah, we on 50 of the top 100 courses, which is always a pinch me number, right? There's anything from Pinehurst to Bandon Dunes, Baltusrol, Shinnecock Hills, all the way to Roy Portrush at the Orcas at St. Andrews, just amazing facilities. And we love learning from them, right? They're certainly at the forefront of where golf is going. And we also love learning from data, right? So this is where really the broad-based 700 golf courses feeding data every day into the system. That's a lot of learning for both our team, but also our AI and algorithms that we've got running. And and then the last leg is the tours like the ARG Women's Open, the DP World Tour that using our systems. And again, that's a learning opportunity because they look at the field flow and the organizational requirements, operational requirements they have slightly differently. And there's lots of input that we can take into our system. Yeah, but we're here to help change an industry and move it forward, as are all of you. So yeah, meeting of minds always great. But yeah, there's one group of people that we're all serving ultimately, and that's the players, and we're here to create experiences for them, right? That's our job. And we always think that technology is doing its job if the people like you, Ben, and your team, you can do what you do best, right? Which is create experiences and build relationships, and build that community around the game. And if we can give you a tool to give you more time for that, then our tool is doing its job. But the player experience is Yeah, it's defined in many different ways. Ben, if I asked you, what are the three things that you would always bet on when it comes to creating the best possible play experience? If you had to pick three out of this list, what would you pick?
So I'm going to start with, our bread and butter is, our course conditioning. That's one. You can have a great course designer like as we do, because that's going to be in my list. But if the golf course isn't any decent kind of shape, you'll get a negative reputation, of course, and then folks won't want to travel to participate and have a good time out here at the facility. So my other is going to be your course design. I think it's a key driver. I think, you don't have to have a top designer. You don't have to have, a big name, but just how the golf course plays and what type of experience it presents, either, on the easier side or on the more challenging side. I think that makes a really big difference, in how folks experience your facility. And then my last one, of course, is pace of play. I mean, we can do all those things. We can have the course in great shape and everybody wants to play it because it's Tom Doak and they love how it's laid out and they come out. And that's what happens for us is we get folks who travel from all across the country to come play this facility because either they've read articles about us or saw something online or whatever, or they know the designer or know our history and they want to play. So imagine coming from Maine or from, LA or whatever to have this experience, and you come out here and its pace of play is poor. That's just a non-starter. That to me, pace of play is, I always talk about, what we do in golf is we work and operate in a shared environment, right? We just do. And so we can't be oblivious to others that are around us. And pace of play is a huge part of that experience. So, and no one's ever behind. No one's ever slow. And no one's ever played a slow round of golf. But that pace of play piece, if we can keep it where we can have it be a positive experience, it
Mm,
doesn't have to be always blazing fast, but we got to be
mm.
consistent in how we operate it, so that we don't impact the experience of others that are on the golf course.
Yeah, 100%. So the research backs you up here fully, right? In that the top experience factor for golfers is always conditioning, and you know that. That's why so much of your budget goes there, and you always want to keep that looking looking up. And then number two for players, according to USGA research, is who's in my group, right? And you're talking about that common space. So we want to share that with good people, right? And then lastly, it's pace and flow of play. And I'm adding flow of play because pace, well, sometimes if a round takes 10 minutes longer than we thought it should, it may not break us, but if I had to wait many, many times on a golf course, and that's where the flow comes in. That's the experience that I remember, right? But yeah, to in addition to that being sort of top experience factors that are known according to research, recently I was at the Golfing Summit, and there was a state of the industry report that was backed by Pellucid Research and some other people on the panel. And what they found is that the growth in golf continues, and obviously that's fantastic. And one of the big drivers, and you mentioned it, Ben, is the Top Golf and having that barrier to entry lowered. It's slightly slower, right? But we already have a massive footprint. And the focus is how do we attract new recruits and sustainably keep them? How do we optimize our tee sheets so we can facilitate more quality play? Because there's so much demand right now. And then lastly, and that goes hand in hand, is retention, right? How do we retain players and embed them in the game for a lifetime? And they shared one number here that public golf loses 21% of its player base annually. And obviously there's new players coming to the game, but 21% get lost, right? And they may have their clubs and they're gathering dust, but how can we make sure that we reduce that number and keep building the foundation? So this is where the experience comes in, and I've heard this so many times, and I know myself. I'm a dad of two. You know what it's like having kids. Time is your biggest challenge and asset, right? So if I'm going to make time to play, please take it seriously, right? Don't have me out there for an hour waiting. it's going to be hard for me to motivate myself to come back if that's the case, right? So that, yeah, that time is such a critical factor. And I think if we want to serve players well and retain them, we need to just respect that. Um, there's one other piece of research here that's always really interesting to look at, and I think that to your point, Ben, that you mentioned, we can have the best conditioning and a fantastic design. If we don't get the pace right, well, that's what players remember. So what this piece of research looked at was that there's 1,000 touch points in a player experience. So that includes making your booking, driving through the gate, being greeted in the clubhouse, checking in, having a marshal, sorry, a starter check in with you as you get going. All of those things are touch points, and some of them rank neutral, some of them rank delighter, and some of them rank frustrator. And they wanted to understand which ones are the ones that make or break the experience. And they found that the most negative experience factors for golfers are uh, both pace related, corrective pace of play actions, which is frustrated marshal coming over and saying, "Hey guys, you're slow. Get on with it." Right? Players, you joked about it, are never slow. They never think they're slow. So if a marshal challenges them, that's corrective. They don't like it. And then on the flip side, other people's speed. If other people get in my way, I have to wait. That's equally as frustrating. So that's a conundrum, right? And then on the other side, on the positive side, etiquette and friendliness of the player assistant is the top delight factor. So that's the one thing that makes your round shine. And then close to that, somewhere in the top five, is information provided about pace of play expectations. So people want to know that there's focus on it, and that that their time is going to be respected. Ben, from your point of view, probably intrinsically and through a lot of experience, a lot of this would have flown into how you do things at Common Ground already. Do you still have a marshal? Is that person called a marshal still?
Yeah, so we call our staff player assistants, those that are out on the golf course. So it starts with our starter, of course, on the first tee, and then we have a player assistant out on the golf course. Just you know, just a couple of things. One, just making sure that there's a presence out there, so that folks know they're not alone in the wilderness in that big park area, and and also to manage the issues that come up when it comes to pace of play. And this is not surprising to me to see these numbers. We you get it on both sides, right? Like it's not every interaction is not positive. I will say I think more of our interactions have been more positive since we've had the system, because
Mhm.
we're not guessing, right? So we all know this as operators. Any operators that are watching this are familiar with this, chart that we had by tee time that listed how what the pace of play was supposed to be, and you give it to your player assistant or your marshal, and he's going by this chart, right? And trying to do his best to kind of navigate those experiences and the pace of play by using this chart without really having any historical data or like being able to see what happened in the last two holes from a pace of play standpoint. And so then their interaction happens. It's no, we've been waiting on these people for the last two holes. And oh my gosh, I can't believe you're coming to talk to us. You should go talk to them, right? Whatever the situation may be. And so now with the information that we have, we actually empower our player assistants to be able to go and have positive conversations to say, "Hey, I saw you, I saw you earlier and you were playing behind. Thanks so much for picking up your pace and closing the gap." And then we then backtrack from a process standpoint and say, "Hey,
Mhm.
pace of play is moving faster in front of you. Just make sure you keep up with the guys and
Mhm.
gals in front of you." So it changes the tone and the tenor of the conversation,
Yeah.
which it goes back to that positivity and a more satisfied side of things. So
Sure. I think you're hitting the mark here on the etiquette and friendliness, right? And as you're saying, if you're not guessing and you have data, you can just educate, right? And you can share information rather than it being an emotional conversation that goes on hearsay. So I think the two takeaways here for all your managers to consider is, well, call your marshal a player assistant, right? Because it's a supportive role where marshal is a policing role. So really the role name change adds a different twist. And then if your message is hey, help us catch up half a hole. You're a little bit half a hole behind right now. Um, then we're not saying the bad word which is slow, right? Players will always fight if you call them slow. It's like, yeah, so calling somebody stupid, and no, we will not accept that ever, no matter what. So we will fight. So if you package it differently, it lands differently, and it's information. But as Ben was saying, if you have data and you know who to talk to and when and where, that really is the game changer. We'll talk to that in just a minute. And talking about data, there's another point of interest here that came from players first. That is one of the prominent post-round survey tools. That's one of our strategic partners. So we love the data that they provide. They basically send out automated mailers on your behalf after the round, and then it's a questionnaire that players fill in, and then you as a manager get a dashboard that shows you how you're trending on various segments, so whatever that might be, the clubhouse experience, on-course experience, friendliness of the staff, food quality, whatever it is. Like, you get the sentiment of the players, and it puts it in a dashboard that's quick to read from a data point of view. And what they found is that you need to do a few things well for your net promoter score to shine. And the net promoter score, you'll recall, is the question, how do you rate the service or company 0 out of 10? And would you recommend it to others, right? So that's the net promoter score. And 7 to 10 normally is promotion, and anything in the middle is neutral. That's more negative than positive. And anything below 4 is negative. People will say bad things and they won't come back. They don't like it. So, so what they found is if players feel welcome, there's good flow of play on the course, and they meet on-course staff. So they want to meet someone out there, looks after them, checks in with them, has a friendly word. Then the net promoter score shoots up, right? So that's the silver bullet, right? Make people feel welcome, good flow of play, and they want to meet somebody while they're out there at some point, right? On the flip side, people don't quite feel welcome. The team in the clubhouse is too busy to make it personal. There's bad flow of play. They have to wait, lots of T-box wait times. And then they don't meet anyone out there that looks after things. That's when the net promoter score dies. And also restaurant visits go down in this case, which is obviously bad for post-round revenue. And the one critical factor here is good flow, high net promoter score, bad flow, net promoter score goes bad. And this is that's an important consideration, because good net promoter score means higher retention, right? It means higher return play and loyalty, and it also means advertising for you, right? Because people had a great experience, they want to bring their friends and they want to come back. But so what can we do? How can we do it? How are we going to get things right? I see a fantastically large green here. What hole is that on common ground, Ben?
That is the green for the third hole, our par 5 on one of the first par 5s on the front.
And that pin position is on the tougher end of what it can do. We're going to talk to that as well. But just from a technology, and what can technology and what does technology need to do for you? So the Tagmarshal is a business tool first and foremost, right? So we want to make sure that we get data about what happens on the golf course, anything that moves, and that can include obviously all the players, all your golf cars, drinks cart, your mowing and superintendent equipment, anything, and we can track it, and we want to know where it is. And then we have walkers that we can also track here. We've got hidden away tracker, that is our classic tag, and then we have an 8 or a 10-inch a GPS. You will note that it is portrait, like a lot of the newer vehicles that you will find, like a Tesla has a portrait mode, because that is just the sort of modern screen orientation. And also it makes a lot of sense in golf, because that's the hole as you look at it ahead, right? So we don't need to think 90-degree around the corner. So this is how we designed it. And all of this feeds data back onto a live map, and it feeds data into a back-end system that helps the operators make better decisions. So we're completely agnostic. Any card type that you're running, we can install into, and obviously adding walkers too. So Ben, Yeah, tell us about the system that you guys have up and running, and also what carts did you guys install it?
So we started last year in 2024 with the walking tags. We were very interested in what data we could get, and so we purchased quite a few of them, and we issued them to every group that played out here for an entire golf season for us. So walkers got them. One walker in the group got a walking tag, and then we also attached it to the golf carts as well. So we were able to kind of get that data. And one of the reasons, well, let me then fast forward to this year. We liked the data so much that we were like, okay, well, we're going to get new carts. We might as well go ahead and add this data. And if you're not using technology in golf, and let me just say it across the board, in how you're managing your operation to how you're providing instruction. I mean, technology is where we are in the world today. And so we added the GPS device displays in our carts as we got our new fleet, as well as maintained our walking tags as well. And then one of the reasons why we did that is, and we were told this, so I'm not making this up, you'd find gaps if the carts were the only thing that were out there. You wouldn't be able to really identify your walkers. So we maintained the process of issuing the walking tag so we can see a full picture of the golf course and be able to manage our pace of play in that way. So, and we do have the two-way 10-inch screens, which are awesome, and I'll tell you one thing that there was a feature that has come in handy. People love to play our golf course and they want to play it cheaper. So in the afternoons and evenings, what do? They come out, take advantage of the 9 holes or the twilight rate, and it's getting dark. And so that two-way communication piece that's been provided through the carts, they've got a cart out there. We can shoot them a message and say, hey, it's time to come on in and bring your golf cart in. And we would then watch them as they come in. So even those little features have been really helpful for us managing our operation here at Common Ground.
That's brilliant. And remind me of the cart brand that you got them installed into?
We have a Yamaha. We actually have Yamaha, and our Yamaha carts are actually gas.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's very often the case, especially if there's altitude involved. So great. So obviously, you might think, do I need walking tags at my facility? Well, if you have 20, 30% walking, you can consider it. If it's really low number of walkers, it may not make sense. But in this case, obviously, you're trying to promote walking off. It does make a lot of sense. So from a staffing point of view, and I mentioned that everything goes onto a live map. We want to see where everything's at from that bird's eye view, and then we want to not just see where things are at, because that wouldn't really be helpful. We want to also have some intelligence behind it. So that's where some colors and sizes come into play. Ben, from your point of view, two questions. Firstly, who have you got dialed into the system? Like who's looking at it? How are they looking at it? And then how do you work with this information now that you have it?
So all of our staff, so our shop staff maintains a screen with the map on it throughout the day, so we can keep our eye on pace of play. And then the managers that are on duty also take a look at it throughout the day to help with pace of play. So our player assistants all have tablets with them while they're on the golf course, and then our starter as well has a tablet. So on busy days when we're really managing pace of play, when we've got groups and bachelor parties and all kinds of groups out here playing golf, that the radio chatter is going back and forth pretty heavy between the golf shop and the player assistant and the starter. And hey, did you see this gap? Is that gap actually real? Go take a look at it. Looking at anything purple, right? Thing purple pops up on that screen, which we know is a indicator of someone that's a delayer or delaying a group that's behind it. That's kind of where we start targeting, and it helps us to be more directed in how we manage the pace of play out here. So we go after those problem areas.
Do you remember a time before technology and the sort of effort that you used to put in to try and keep things moving?
Oh, absolutely. So, our golf course kind of sits in a bowl. You kind of come up at 9 and go back down at 10 and you come back up at 18 is kind of how it works. You go down at 1, of course. So it's a lower lying area. So, you can find we would find our staff, on-course staff, sitting at higher elevation levels, trying to identify, from a high level and really, really far away, where the gaps and stuff may be. If not doing that, going, of course, backwards against the flow of play to identify, okay, well, this is the complete hole is open or half a hole is open. And again, as I mentioned before, kind of utilizing, a chart system when it comes to timing and what tee times and when they started. So yeah, definitely a lot more cumbersome, a lot more anecdotal. I would say, and now we don't have that feeling anymore. When we're clicking on all cylinders, we know what we're doing to kind of address our pace of play issues.
Fantastic. We feel we're doing our jobs well to give you a tool if it's like Google Maps versus a paper map, right? And it really gives you that information that you need. Yeah, so some of the things that we look at is the hole by hole progress, right? So that's up here. Then we obviously have the start time. We know the gap time to the group ahead. We have a current play time versus projected finish time. All of those things are built in, and you know that within 3 seconds of looking at the course, and also you can click on any of these groups to get yeah, a deeper view on where they're at, and then yeah, because of the two-way screen, you can shoot them a message, or you can go and have a friendly chat. Yeah, so we're always trying to optimize and make things better for the operator. And one of the features that we know always is adding value also to the superintendent is because you got so many golfers and many of them are compliant, some of them are not as mindful. And how do you make sure that you protect your turf? So one of the features that is helpful here is called geofencing. How does that work for you and the team at Common Ground, Ben?
Yeah, so this has been a big addition for us, and we've seen the golf course, improve. I would say over the past year, and particularly in areas where we know that we've had problems with traffic. We don't see those traffic area patterns anymore as much, and so the geofencing that you see on the screen there is what we've established that helps to alert the players to where they should be. If you can, number 12 at the top upper left of that screen is a par three. There in our golf course and at most golf courses, you're not going to drive off the path on a par three. And so we protect all of our par threes, we protect all of our native areas and any other areas that are sensitive, approaches to greens, all of that. And so the geofencing indication, it comes up with a loud kind of beeping sound is something that really helps to protect the golf course. And we get that, as it says there, the notification on there, which lets us know, the geofence has been breached. And here's what's really happened culturally. I know some facilities have carts that will turn off or won't let you advance or whatever. And I was kind of concerned about that myself. I was like, I really wonder if it's just a screen and noise, like how would that impact? Well, it does. It's loud enough. And culturally, if the sound is going off on the golf course, folks who know and are out here regularly, they turn and pay attention to it. And you kind of get this stare like, you're not supposed to be over there, right? Like, you're not supposed to drive in the native. Like, come on, it's a par three. Don't do that. So, I mean, literally, that's what the experience has been when you're out on the golf course. You'll see everybody's eyes and ears kind of perk up when those noises kind of go off. So it's kind of fun. But yeah, it's helped us out a lot.
Yeah, there's a bit of community policing that happens there. I get it, right? And I also think for the most part, players want to be compliant. They're just not always mindful. So for them to get a reminder that they can't ignore, and it literally it's like a truck reversing, right? You will hear it. Yeah, it works well. Obviously, we do know that there's some courses where there's real sort of elevation and sort of speed of cart risk. And you need to be able to cut out the card. So our team has actually built that as an option. But Ben, you're quite right. Yeah, normally this works perfectly well, and also there's a different schools of thoughts in what it does to the pace of play, right? Because if your cart stops and you have to reverse out, to what extent does that slow you down versus if you can just pull out in the most direct possible way, but you may do that going forward and get back on the cart path. What does that do to the pace? So yeah, so there's different schools of thought, but it's fantastic to hear that it's working so well, and it's always good to keep the superintendent on side, right? He's
Absolutely.
or she's the VIP at the club alongside yourself. Yeah, then another thing that's important from a data standpoint is that every single round the system tracks has a history. We call it a track map, and that has information on it, including any sort of pace interactions, but also geofence breaches. And sometimes, yeah, cars come back and they don't look the way they're supposed to. Um, and sometimes a group comes back and says, "Oh, this was a 5 hour round. I want my money back." So how is this helpful to you guys in managing some of these use cases?
That last one is so huge, particularly when we have league events and the pace of play in those, particularly in my men's league event, is not always the best. But I think there may have been a tendency to just want to complain after the round was over. I don't know if that's because a bad round happened or whatever. But I remember earlier in the season when we really, deployed the carts and being used. And I had a gentleman that came off the golf course and he said, "Man, that was a long round of golf. We played in 4 hours and 50 minutes, 55 minutes, whatever. It was almost 5 hour round of golf." And I went, "Okay, what cart number were you in?" And I went and I checked. I was like, "Dude, you played in 425, right?" It was sub our standard of pace of play. And so then it's like, eh, eh, oh, right? And so we battle that information, right? And that could have been a flow thing. He could have been a
Sure.
faster player who he wanted
Mm,
to flow a little bit better on the golf course, but from a pace standpoint, he was where we expected him to be, and
mm,
there was no blowback. That's what
mm,
I loved about it. It wasn't an argument. There was no,
mm,
well, how do you know that? Like, no, dude, here it is, right here. You played in 425. This was your start time. This is when you ended. And so then the conversation changed to what was his experience in the round? Like, how did he play? Where were they? Did you ball? It wasn't pace at that point, right? So
mm,
that to me was one that kind of really sticks out from an experience standpoint when it
mm.
comes to this.
Yeah, that's the thing with pace, like perception becomes reality, right? And it's just as you say, and I've spoken to a private club manager recently, he said if a player thinks the pace wasn't good, all of a sudden the beer is too warm, and the steak is overdone, right? So nothing works after that. So we have actually built this in here so you can share this information. Like you can click on here, put it into somebody's email, and they can see for themselves. And that's we find is helpful. Sometimes people might share a strong opinion on on Google, do a negative review or something. It's just good to have the facts to be able to um, yeah to have the conversation appropriately, right? And it's not a hearsay question. And as I said, sometimes cards come back and they're damaged, and normally it's helpful to trace that back to the player, to the round, to a certain position on the golf course, what happened, and hold people accountable. So that's what that's for. But yeah, we also have sort of broader data where we want to always make sure that you can dig into and understand, are you successful in your mission, right? Which is, are we providing a quality experience and quality pace? How can we improve? And it's incremental, right? Very often it's incremental little tweaks that you make. Think about it. You've got 18 holes. If you can shave off 1 minute, minute and a half at 10 of them, that gives you 15 minutes of improvement, right? And it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is, and it all adds up, and we have to just do it consistently, right? So here's yeah, your goal time is varied. We're gonna explain what that means because that's already different, right? There's not like a set, this is the goal time. And your average round time on this particular day is 4 hours, 12 minutes, 51 seconds. And you got pretty much 80% of your day through within pace. And then we have your hole by hole run times. We even break that down into time on tee box, time on fairway, time on green, so you can see how that runs versus expectations. And every single tee time is broken down into whether on pace, whether delayed, whether delayer. And you can also look at time periods, like a week or a month, and then see the same data. So how is that helpful? How do you guys use that to manage your team and your performance?
No, I would say we manage it from an operational standpoint. This data has been really helpful for us from a staffing standpoint. So I know that the days that I can look at, and I mentioned it before, kind of Thursday through Sunday, those are our heavy days. Those are the
Mhm.
days I need to make sure that everybody's paying attention. I'm staffed up to an appropriate level so that we can manage our pace of play appropriately. And then the other days during the week, I know, okay, well, I only need to have a staff member available from a pace standpoint or a player assistant, between this time and this time to really kind of help. So it's really helped us on the labor side of things to kind of know where we need to plug and play staff that helps out with the overall process on the golf course.
Um, that's great because obviously labor efficiency is big. Talk to us a little bit about variable goal times and what that concept is doing for you.
Yeah, so this Ed had to leave, but this is his baby right here. We've had so many conversations about, how the flow of pace can be impacted from the morning and getting you started off on the right foot day in and day out. So, we start out with a 4 hour time frame for the first 2 hours of our day here at Common Ground, and we really kind of go after this, and that includes if our women's club is playing. That includes if I got seniors or men's club. That's the target that we go after. And it doesn't matter skill level. It doesn't matter to us. Like that's our window, and we set the expectation on the tee box. Hey, this is your goal time for this morning. We're going to be keeping a 4 hour pace. You'll see, a player assistant out there kind of informing you of kind of where you are in the process and giving them that information. And so, do we always hit four, particularly when we have a competitive environment going on? No, but we're closer to 405. We're not
Mhm.
430,
Mhm.
and if we see those numbers creeping up, then we can address those issues to get us started for our day. And it really gives us a shot as we start to increase those goal times throughout the day, moving to 410 and 420, and eventually to our target goal of 430. So yeah, it's really been helpful. It helps us with the flow, and we all know once that play starts at 4:30, 4 hours and
Mhm.
30 minutes in the morning, there's really not much else you can do
Sure.
other than hoping that there's a block that you can kind of throw in to gain some of that time back. So.
Yeah, I think you're making some great points. And what I really want to highlight here is that it's not a one size fits all environment, right? You can also design your days appropriately in terms of we're going to play the men's league at this pace. We're going to play the women's at this pace. We're going to play our season players, early mornings, rabbits, fasting golf, whatever you want to call it, with that expectations. And then you communicate it so you can allocate players appropriately. And Pebble Beach does that too, right? And Pebble Beach is not easy to manage. It's a very tough golf course, and people want to take 100 photos, so you have to be proactive. And they have the same or similar system in play, and it's great to see it in practice. And the other opportunity that comes in if you're playing 4:30 versus 4 hours is that potentially there's opportunities to reduce the interval in between because your players are moving yeah, out of the shot zone quicker. So we'll discuss that because there's opportunities to add and find capacity, which is always a gain. But Ben, you mentioned the data helps you with staffing, and this is so your seasonal data from April right through to August. And congratulations that you and the team brought your entire season through at 4 hours 21 minutes. And that's fantastic to see. But you can clearly see that your heavy days, as Ben mentioned, and how that also impacts the pace a bit. But what's great to see from my point of view is that you had your busiest month in terms of rounds tracked in July, but because the team got into the system so well, you're actually bringing the round times down, even though it's yeah almost another 400 rounds up, right? So it's really busy out there, but your round times are stable. And here's what that shows you in terms of the actual average round time within your time segments of the day. So the day starts 4 hours 2 minutes, and then it pushes up into the sort of 427. But that's why it's great to have this variable goal times applied. And it just gives you more controls over things. And you can always win and only win if you're starting your day quicker. Because if, like Ben, like you said, if your first few rounds out are starting to go over 4 hours 30, the rest of the day can never be faster. You can never catch it up, right? So it's great to see that implemented. And then the other thing that we always want to measure, what's the percent of rounds on pace? And your season has had 80.2% of rounds on pace or within 10 minutes, right? So there's only a fraction of all the rounds that you've played that have gone over. And that is because you're so proactive in management and you're dialing into things so well. And very often it comes down to those interventions to catch things and bring them back in line. Yeah, one of the things that's also important, and I mentioned that earlier, that's often where this incremental opportunities is the hole by hole runtime. Yeah, here's some of the data. What have you learned about it, and how do you think you can use that?
So I think it backs up exactly what our golf course, what my experience was when I first got here, 4 seasons ago. I came from a couple of golf courses previously where you could double up on par threes and all that stuff when you did, shotgun tournaments with, 140 players and oh my gosh, or 130, whatever it ended up being. And, here what we found is that you can't do that. And we figured out first anecdotally, because we were like, okay, well, we started to get a slowdown right around 4 or 5 is where the golf course starts to get difficult. But we would have these conversations and we would say, oh, well, that's what it feels like out there. Then we
Mm,
got Tagmarshal and it backs up our data, right? So
mm,
these intervals are actually based on what we originally kind of set up, and we need to go in and adjust the time
mm,
because 5 typically plays over pace, and so does 6. And then we have a reachable par 5, and then a almost drivable if you're a long hitter, shorter kind of par 4 after it. So we see these kind of crunches happening in that space from a
mm.
play standpoint, and the data backs it up. And so it gives us the opportunity to really now look at it and start kind of adjusting where we should kind of take things moving forward.
That's great. And we also want to measure the halfway house, right? Because sometimes
Mhm.
there's inefficiencies, and this is an opportunity that also speaks to what the screens can do for you in terms of dialing that into potentially pre-orders and things like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, we're talking about revenue here, and what we find very often is that there's a clear gain on the labor front. There's normally players come off the course faster and happier. There's uptick in food and beverage and pro shop spend, and t-shirt optimization is that very simple. How can we find another 2 or 3 tee times? That may be at the critical time that's in line with the sort of higher price dynamic pricing early in the morning. If we can tighten intervals a little bit, is that possible? How can we do it safely? And then later in the day, if our day is 20 minutes faster than it used to be, is there another 2 tee times that we can do full rates on? And very often that then adds up. And the loyalty and repeat play is akin to retention, right? So if we can reduce the drop off of players and players want to come back to a golf course, that's worth a lot because we don't need to advertise to get new players on, and we won't disappoint them. So yeah, that's real money gained, right? And we feel that's ultimately where it's at. And if the net promoter score goes up, that's always good for business. So we want to ensure that we help the courses dialing in. And here's another piece of research that's interesting too. So firstly, great news for golf is that 18 to 34-year-old bracket of the market is now the biggest. That's the biggest cohort. It's no longer the retirees, it's actually the younger players, right? And yeah, I would wager that they may be a bit more impatient, right? Then they've got places to go. And they also maybe used to Top Golf 2.5 hour entertainment. And they're used to DoorDash and things happening quickly, right? So the research here says that under 40s are willing to pay up to 25% more. That's a quarter of under 40s are willing to pay up to 25% more. Almost 40% of under 40s are willing to pay up to 20% more for a faster round of golf because time is under pressure for them, right? Because they're all professionals slash have young kids, right? So for them to make a round of golf, they need to make sure that we do that well for them. So there is a segment in the market that wants to pay you more if you give them that. And we always want to point that out. You can market that. You can say, hey, we can do 3 hours 50 round. If you're committing, that's our fast lane golf, and here's the rate. Do you want to play it? And then we can get dig into the opportunities around, what is our inventory if we're assuming 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. and a 10-minute static interval application that gives you 54 tee times, right? So this is hypothetical, but what if we're mixing this up? What if we're starting our day faster and we're ending our day quicker? And then we can reduce our tee times to 9 minutes. And even if at the height of the traffic out there, we're adding a minute breather between groups, and adding 11 minutes, that gives us a net gain of 3 tee times. And if we want to be aggressive and we tighten and start a day really quickly and we tighten intervals down to 8 and really get experienced players out there, we can gain up to 7 tee times. Obviously, this is aggressive, but it's what's possible, right? So we see a lot of operations that add 2, 3, 4 tee times, and that is really, really attractive dollars, and we can get more players out there and make them happy, right? And there's auxiliary dollars come alongside that. So I think, Ben, you guys are really starting to dial into the data, and I would encourage you to analyze this a bit more with your Tagmarshal customer success associate at the end of the season now, and see what the opportunities are. And then there's, fund revenue is always welcome, right? As long as we can make sure the experience is great for everybody. And from an advertising standpoint, that's obviously also possible because there's so much face time with the system. How are you thinking about that and utilizing that display option?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've started with starting with hole sponsors when we do our outside events where they come to play, offering this as a paid option for them, so they can basically take the hassle off of their plate to do hole sponsorships and all that, and print out signs. And it also helps us from a labor standpoint if they engage in that, because then we don't have to drive out to the golf course and drop off stuff to every single hole. We saw a kind of a slow uptick in that to get started, but as we kind of talked about a little bit more, we had some events that actually utilized it and people experienced it. That's growing a little bit faster. So I would anticipate we're going to get more sales through that. And then we typically don't do general advertising here at the golf course. We focus more on the promotions of our programs, like you can see on the screen there. A message about taking a caddy next time. We really promote our Solus Caddy and Leadership program, where our kids are going after the Evans Scholarship. So yes, they may be in a car at that time, but if they can take a caddy, even if it's just once a summer, it helps us out towards our goal there. So, promoting, PJ Junior League and things like that, that's what happens in our golf carts. And then the next step for us in the evolution will be promoting sales that we have in the golf shop or anything else specialized that's going on in the golf course that day. So that's where we're going with our signage.
That's fantastic, and that's what it's for, right? Because it's interactive, and you can geolocate. You can say, I want this information to pop up at this point in the round, right? And I know there's one operator in Michigan that is using that. He runs a Parklands course. There's a lot of forest, and he knows that if a golf cart goes on that end of the fairway, these guys have lost the ball, right? So then he puts up an ad. Do you need a sleeve of balls? We'll deliver out to the golf course. And other operators are saying, hey, like if they're realizing that a group is maybe not having the best score out there. Is that an opportunity to promote lessons, right? So you can pop this up on the screen. And then obviously, like you said, the outside advertisers at golf days, it's always welcome for them to have screen time. They need to motivate. They need to get some sort of return on their investment and more face time. You can also do interactive items like putting a QR code on, getting people's information, that sort of thing is all possible. So lastly, and thanks for the insight, Ben, what's the player's response has been to the tech? Obviously, you've had an evolution where you started out with the walking tags that were a bit more sort of operationally geared. So what's the player's response has been to the pace information that you're driving with it, and now that you have the screen system?
Yeah, I would say it's been very well received. I think it sets the expectation that the experience is going to be a particular way from a pace standpoint on the golf course. As I mentioned before, we communicate with them about the technology, whether or not it's informing them of the GPS systems on the cart or the walking tags. So they're not alone, right? So they're out there. They know that we're paying attention, and it really helps us when it comes to those interactions with the player. So overall, I think it's been really, really positive, and it also helps to keep us on our toes, right? So they know that we can see the data. So if something's
Mm.
going on out there and we're not paying attention, guess what happens? They come in and say, "Hey, you said you had all this information. I didn't see you out there, and it was a little bit slow." That usually happens at the turn, kind of wakes us up a little bit, and then we go after it and make sure we do what we're supposed to do.
That's only fair. So yeah, I know one of the things that that players that makes them feel good is that like they're in good hands is there's high competency, right? If your team has competency, and that's where having that information and the data obviously helps. And yeah, all the way to having a TV screen in the clubhouse with a live map and maybe rotating some other information. That's normally also possible. Yeah, we are right on pace here, Ben, and I'm proud to say that we made it through our round ahead of goal time. So there's a few minutes for questions. If anyone has any question, feel free to pop it into the chat here, and we will try and answer. And also want to just point your attention to some of our team here that might work with you. There's Pat Parenti, is the Arizona resident, our sales director, Sean Corfell, who looks after Colorado, Utah area for us and our partners, and David Hamilton is out of Augusta, making sure that that we can grow our opportunities. And then the hero, Leif Hansen, the PGA professional, one of our customer success representatives. That's your driving coach, if you will, because you can have the best vehicle in the driveway if you don't know how to drive it, and where you're going, then you're not going to get much use out of it. So, we know that the guys on our customer success team making sure that everyone wins with the program. Okay, there's some questions here. What is the best feature for you on the system that you can't do without?
I would say the round tracking. So where you can dive deep into that particular round and see each hole where the pace of play either slowed down or sped up. And I think there was a slide that showed the track map, and I don't know if
Hmm.
you all noticed it, but there were different colored dots on there. And so as we kind of look back at that information, we can see where the pace of play has improved or deteriorated. And so it really helps us to kind of have a conversation, particularly, and we all know this, right? Leagues, right? So we can identify not only the tee time that and if the names are applied to it, we can identify what folks were actually in that tee time, and we can identify where they slowed down and if that had an overall impact on the majority of the field itself. And so to me, that's one when you start talking about groups and group management, it helps you to have these conversations about, okay, well, this is what's happening on a regular basis. And you can even dive down into people and say, hey, Mr. Smith continually plays and slows down the rest of the league itself. We need to have a conversation with him about
Yeah.
his pace of play that's more directed.
100%. So that's also where it helps to have T-sheet data feeding into the systems. You can have the names alongside. Here's another question. How does Tagmarshal work for shotgun events? And I think that's a great question because
That's a
obviously
very good question.
the system normally runs on, and let me just jump into that initial map. So we normally zone the golf course, and here's your first hole out the clubhouse. So we would know that once a group goes onto the tee box here, we know that they're about to start their round. We don't want to start the count right then because it might take them 2 or 3 minutes to get ready. They might even be there before their tee time. As this is actually where we want them. So we start the round timing as soon as they enter the first fairway, and then we actually add say 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, depending on how long that normally takes, to the timing, so that we have the exact timing of the first tee. And we can also do that off the 9th. There's courses doing double tee starts. Now, obviously, with a shotgun, we want to allocate, that might be from Golf Genius or from your tee sheet, where do the groups start? And then you can see the carts as they move out onto the golf course. And then there's a set time to start. And you can then allocate, hey, these guys actually need another 5 minutes, so we're going to start it at 9:05 and at not 9. And then the timing starts that group off their start position, and then counts them all simultaneously. And then the 18 holes then counts from group number 5 being on hole 5, 5A, 5B, all of that, right? So that's built into the program, and that gives you the pace information as you would expect of a shotgun.
Yeah, and it's really helpful as well. Like we really utilize that feature this year. It helps us when we start talking about catering and when to be prepared with food. It helps us with the conversation of the organizers when we're sitting there and half the group has come in for scoring, where the other half is dilly-dallying. We all know that sometimes we get people who, end a round of golf at 14 and want to play, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And so it helps us to identify if they're still on the golf course, and we can have those conversations with, yes, we still have about, 5, 6 groups that are still on the course and haven't turned in their scorecards, and just being more informational with the organizer as well.
Sure. Yeah, I know one of our famous successful launch moments was there's a course outside Baltimore, and they had one of their annual sponsor events, and normally that used to be a long-winded golf day, like they always are, right? And then our system got installed. Our GM Joey was on site and getting the guys dialed in, and the golf day, because everyone had their screen and everyone wanted to be on pace, basically came through in 4 hours 10, which I'd never done before. And the manager said that day we made an additional $2,400 at the bar because the players came off the course sooner, right? And the prize giving happened sooner, and everything was done more quickly, so they had more time to spend with us, and they all came off happier. And they immediately re-signed for the event again the next year. So it's like, and he said it looks like the system is going to pay for itself very quickly, and that's obviously great to hear. That was day 1 for them. I'm not seeing any more questions. So we are going to call it a day, and purposefully we didn't talk about the Ryder Cup, but maybe we should. And because there was a Rory McIlroy ad, I don't know if that aged well or not on that example here. What did you think? Sunday things got exciting, and some pride was salvaged. What was your takeaway?
America, we started a little late. Europe, they got started first in life in general, right? And then we cut a piece off and came over here. So we're always trailing behind just a little bit, but we're fighters, right? So we
Yes.
ended up trying to make it competitive. But no, it's one of those things. We've been pulling for them, and we want them to do better. They gotta figure out a way to get that foursome going. Otherwise, they're always going to be behind. And I know that's the strength of the European team. So no, it was fun to watch, and it was fun to watch in battle. And so we're looking forward to 2 years from now for sure.
I think it's definitely up the stakes for that next edition, which will be at Adair Manor, which is also one of our partner courses. So we're very excited for that one, and I'm sure that the team will be ready and well prepared and take back the cup. But it was fantastic golf, and some really exciting finishes too. Ben, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for the fantastic work you do with the team at Common Ground, and the work that you guys do more broadly with association. We really appreciate it, and thanks for being such a good partner to us. Enjoy the rest of your season and it winding down. Are you coming to the PGA show at all? Is that on your travel list?
Be there. We'll be there. Yeah, absolutely.
You're from Florida originally, right? So that's
I'm from Orlando.
See some friends and family, no doubt. Okay, so we're hoping to see you there. It's not far away now, which is a bit scary, just 3 months off. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Slowly but surely winding down. Thank you for your time. Great to spend the time and get the insights from you, and really appreciate it.
No, thank you very much.